Hello, I'm Eric Davison, and I'm showing you how to build a smarter garden. In this video series, we're building an automated smart garden from scratch using a Raspberry Pi. If you're interested in saving some time and water in your garden, follow along. So our first task is going to be preparing our SD card that we want to use with our Raspberry Pi. We're going to do that by installing Raspbian, which is the official operating system that comes with the Raspberry Pi. So let's go ahead and plug this into our computer and get started.
You can download Raspbian by going to the raspberrypi.org website and locating it under the download section. They provide two versions of Raspbian, the Raspbian with desktop and the Raspbian Lite. The desktop version comes with a desktop and a bunch of other pre-installed software that makes it handy when you're first getting started with the Pi. We don't need to take advantage of any of this out-of-the-box software, so we're going to use the Lite version to save on space and continue the process using our terminal. If you're more comfortable using a desktop to configure some of these settings, feel free to download the desktop version and follow along still.
Raspbian is quite large and will take some time to download, but we can continue to format our SD card in the meantime. I've downloaded Raspbian ahead of time for the sake of this tutorial. We're using a Mac today, so we're going to use the disk utility to format our SD card. I'm going to open up the disk utility. On the left hand side, I can locate my SD card that I plugged into my laptop. We'll select Erase to format it. We're looking for a FAT32 format, which is MS-DOS FAT here on the menu. You can also provide a name for your SD card if you choose so. Once you've finished formatting, we're going to continue with the terminal in order to write the image file to our SD card, because I've had inconsistent results using the disk utility to write images.
Before we can write the image file to the SD card, we must first know the path of the SD card on our computer. We can use the distkutil list command to find a list of all the drives on our computer along with their partitions. I'm using a 16GB card, which you can locate here at the bottom under Disk 2. It's important that you use the path of the drive and not one of its partitions so that we can fully write over it. In my case, this will be /dev/disk2.
Next, we need to unmount the disk before we can write to it. We're going to use the distkutil unmount disk command followed by the path of the disk we just found in order to unmount it. Keep in mind that these commands are case sensitive. You can see that we've successfully unmounted our disk, and now we're ready to write the image file. We'll use the dd command to write the image to our SD card. We'll have to run this command with admin privileges. You can type sudo before any command you run to run it with admin privileges. The dd command takes a couple of parameters in order to run. First, we want to specify the input file. For us, this is Raspbian, which we downloaded earlier. I have it located on my desktop. You can also drag and drop the file to your terminal and it'll populate the path for you. Next, let's specify the output file location. For us, this is our SD card path that we looked up earlier. And finally, I'm setting the block size to 1 MB. Since we're running the command as an admin, we have to provide our password if one is set. Next, it's going to start writing the image file to our SD card. This will take some time, so be patient.
Once the image file is finished being wrote to the SD card, it'll have some display here about how much data was wrote to the card in terms of bytes and how long it took. You can see for me it was just a little over 813 seconds, which is about 13 minutes for us.
And that wraps up preparing the SD card. We're ready to plug it in the Pi and continue our setup. I'm switching over to the workstation and catching you guys in the next video.